you have to spend time doing that if you actually want to use LinkedIn to grow your business as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, founder. And so I have to be in the mood. So what I do is, this is a blessing and a curse, which is part of why if anyone's ever like, it's too much mentally to be on LinkedIn, I'm like, cool, don't do it. Because you're completely right. I think in content all the time. It's like dorky level. Like I'll be driving and I'm like, oh, Anna, she's my wife, like, write this sentence down. That's going to be something.
Hey, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Content Briefly. Today, I'm really excited to present to you Erica Schneider. We have not met before. There was so much to talk about here. We definitely need to bring her back for a round two because we certainly didn't get to all of it. This is one of those episodes where instead of talking about the craft of content, we talk about the business of content. And Erica is charting a kind of non-traditional path in that world. So she comes from an agency background, now runs Content Sparring, which is like a one-on-one coaching service. She has a newsletter, lots of LinkedIn content, which she does monetize. We talk about that. Anyways, tons of good stuff here. As always, I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you do too. This episode of Content Briefly is brought to you by our friends at Captain. Captain is the hyper-contextual AI-powered tool that can create, engage, and identify. It helps you create by turning customer interviews, company announcements, competitor comparisons, and educational material into rich content. It helps you engage by automatically including lead magnets, infographics, CTA, table of contents, and even AI-generated conversational podcasts in every piece of content that it creates. And by the way, it integrates with any CMS. It helps you identify by seeing who your anonymous site visitors are, including their name, email, where they work, job title, LinkedIn profile, and more. So you always know if you're finding the right audience, and that'll help you close more deals. You can learn more in the webinar that we did with them, which will be linked in the show notes, and at contentcaptain.io. And just PS, the Captain team also created echoreads.io, which turns written content into monologue or two-way dialogue podcasts. You can even just click to clone your own voice so you're the expert speaking. It's very cool and starts at just $19 a month with an option for a free trial. So that's echoreads.io. Thanks so much to Captain for sponsoring. Thanks so much to our friends at Captain for supporting Superpath. Content Briefly is produced by our friends at Minutia. To learn more about their podcast production service, as well as their other adaptive content marketing services, check out minutia.com in the show notes. Hey everybody, Jimmy from Superpath here today with another episode of Content Briefly. Really excited to chat with and actually meet for the first time, well, kind of for the first time, Erica Schneider. We think that we were actually at a meetup together, but didn't talk. That's a whole different story. I was just going to introduce you, Erica, as Erica from Content Sparring or Erica from Cut the Fluff, but maybe I'll let you take that part. Like, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about what you do too?
Yeah. So it's so funny. I was on stage for the first time ever, actually, a couple days ago, my first ever in person with an audience stage. And he was like, this is Erica Schneider, founder of Cut the Fluff. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I don't even know if I would have introduced myself like that because it's also very new. So yeah, I've got a newsletter called Cut the Fluff and I decided to name my business after it. But a bit of context, I started my career as a freelance writer on Upwork, actually, like many freelancers do, back in 2017. And then I made my way into content editing and worked my way up at an agency called Grizzle to become their head of content. And I was there in total for 4.5 years. But halfway through that stint, Tom, actually the founder of Grizzle, challenged all of us to build personal brands. Because it was a thing like that was happening around 2021, 2022. This is becoming a big thing. Maybe it'll help the agency. Maybe it'll help all of you with your careers. And I took the challenge quite seriously. And I've got so many more followers now and a whole business because of it. So that was a cool challenge. And from that challenge, I started a side hustle where I started launching digital courses and teaching people kind of from content marketing teams, but also just solopreneurs and entrepreneurs how to communicate more strategically online. And so I knew that that was sort of where I was going to go with my career, but I wasn't entirely sure how to get there. And when I left my job at the end of 2023, in October, I hadn't figured out a service yet. So I was still just doing digital products. I was running some cohorts. And 3 months ago, so May 24, I figured out Content Sparring. So at the moment, I have 3 courses that kind of serve anyone who's a B2B marketer or writing online that wants to get better at writing. And then I have Content Sparring, which I promote towards seasoned solopreneurs or anyone really who wants to communicate better online and have like a collaborative environment with a trained editor to do that. So that's what I do. It all falls under the Cut the Fluff business name. And then there's like the courses and the high ticket offer.
Okay, that's awesome. I feel like we could spend the entire episode unpacking what you just said. Also, shout out to Tom, Grizzle founder,
Right?
for encouraging everyone to do that. Like, what a cool thing for
Yeah.
the owner of a company to do, especially around that time. Because you're right. Like, it's it was kind of blue ocean, lots of opportunity to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to hit you with a bunch of follow up questions.
Yeah.
The first is how does LinkedIn fit into your business strategy? Because that's how I think you've been on my radar so much. Like I've come across your name through Ryan Baum, a mutual friend of ours, among other people. But then it's like the algorithms know, like they know that like that's in your brain, and then they show you stuff, but you're fairly prolific on LinkedIn. And I'm curious, like, how important has that been to getting the business off the ground, not just to building an audience, but to getting customers in the door?
It's been extremely important. So I don't think I would have been able to get to a path of solopreneurship or entrepreneurship without it. And that's a pretty strong statement. Like it helped me figure out what I wanted to do and what my skills, like which of my skills were the most helpful and the most useful and the most resonated with like the market. And I was able to take that and build my career off of it. So a lot of people say LinkedIn is like live feedback loops. It's so true. You hear from people and then you iterate and you kind of like test ideas and you can get all this feedback in real time. So a couple things though. The way that I have sustained my presence on LinkedIn, it was also Twitter for a while, but Twitter's gotten so weird. I refuse to call it X.
So weird.
So weird. But I still have more followers there than LinkedIn, which is crazy because I never really post there anymore. Like maybe like once a week, and it used to be multiple times a day.
Right.
But the reason I've been able to show up almost every day, I take breaks, but almost every day for 2.5 years, is that I refuse to tie any marketing KPIs or metrics or outcomes to the platform. I just refuse to. Because for me, the second that you do that, it becomes a marketing tactic as opposed to a place for creativity and fun. And I have to live in this bucket. Like I have to keep it fun and creative. It's okay. Writers will understand this. Anyone who writes for a living will understand this. We rarely get to write for ourselves, as ourselves, by ourselves, right? Without anyone else looking at it, without a brief, like without those outcomes tied to it. It's business-driven writing. So even though this is also business-driven writing, it's mine. It was the first writing I ever put in public that was completely mine, that nobody had a say over. It didn't have to fit into this like brief. It didn't have to have this outcome. And so I truly love it. I truly enjoy it. And I think that that's part of what makes me stand out, or everyone's, oh, I see your content around. It's because I'm playful online. I'm having fun. I'm never following any type of template. I'm making it up as I go. I'm, having conversations with people within the content and in the comments. It's just a good time. It's the best way I can put it. And so I'm there because I enjoy it. And as a result, I think that vibe kind of like passes from me through the screen, and people are like, oh, this person seems kind of like someone I'd want to actually hang out with and be friends with. Like, let me follow her and see what's going on.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I just have never really thought of social media that way. I find myself being actually quite cynical about social media most of the time. But what you just described, which is this platform, which makes creation so direct and easy and accessible to anybody, is such a positive way to look at it. I really like that. And you're so right. Like, I think about this a lot as someone who runs a small company now. Like, I don't ever write anymore. It's like the thing, that's how I became a content marketer. It's how I grew my career. And now it's the thing that I never do anymore. So anyways, is that, I'm wondering if maybe I'm a prospective customer for you. Like, are your customers doing this? You know what I mean? Are you sort of in some ways also like showing them the thing that they are also aspiring to do?
Totally, 100%. So a lot of the people I work with now in my content sparring offer, which again is really quite new, I am working with solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, really anyone, but those are the two people that I'm targeting the most, who want to utilize LinkedIn, their newsletter, any type of like go-to-market platform, I suppose, to get in touch with their audience, get this live feedback, figure out kind of more of like who they are, what their style is. A lot of these people, like it's even writers who are professional writers, don't really know how to communicate as themselves. Like we've all learned from one place or another, whether it was high school to do the 5-paragraph essay or college, to write these academic ways. And then in content marketing, you have to write, based on the format that you're in, and it has to follow these kind of strict rules. And especially if you're in the SEO world with keywords and bluff and all that stuff. And so when you're actually given the task of, okay, write about 500 words, that's about 3,000 characters, depending. It's like 400 to 700 in your own voice, in your own style, in your own tone, and sell something that has to do with you and not a company. It's like, what? Like, what? What am I supposed to do with this box? Like,
Yes, almost too much freedom.
It's too much freedom. It's so true. It's too much freedom. It's so absolutely overwhelming. So people don't feel confident. They don't know what's going to work. And they also know what they don't want. Like, I'm very against certain ways of showing up on these platforms. There's all these templated ways that are, hack your way to virality and engagement, all the stuff that I don't really love. And so I push back against that. So I also attract a lot of people who are like, how do I get engagement without feeling cringy or salesy or like just horrible about the whole thing? So that's also part of the process. Yeah.
I remember reading James Clear's blog like 10 years ago, like way back in the day. And even then, his blog was crushing it. And he had written quite a bit about how he grew this really popular blog by forcing himself to write a new blog post every Monday and every Thursday. And he did that over and over and over again. And he got better at writing. He built the habit. He better understood his audience, and it grew and grew. To me, the biggest challenge of that, I think anyways, is what do you keep writing about? And I wonder if you face a similar problem with the type of writing that you do. Do you have a content calendar? Do you keep lots of notes? Are you clipping stuff in your, like, what are your, do you have any tricks that you can rely on to keep the ideas flowing?
Yeah, I have one trick. I'm a one-trick pony. I've got no content calendar. Like anything that we're supposed to do, or let me rephrase, anything that I did do for all those years at the agency, I can't do them for myself for 2 reasons. Number one, I am the least organized person in the world unless someone is holding a gun to my head. And number 2, again, like it feels like work when I put those constraints on it. So I've removed all of them. So I have no content calendar. I follow no strict, MoFu posts on Wednesdays, like BoFu post on a Monday, sales post on like Sunday story. Like that's a thing on LinkedIn. Like I don't do any of that. Instead, what I do is I mix the intuitive strategy that I have in my brain from being a content marketer with my literal intuition of what do I feel like talking about in this moment. And that's another like hack of mine that I talk about a lot, which is if you're not feeling your content and like you don't feel passionate about what you've written, it's going to come through somehow. It's a weird black magic-y thing. So when I post something, I want to know that I'm in the mood to talk about it, or else I'm not going to engage with the comments. And engaging with the comments is like half the thing. It's not just a billboard. It's not a digital billboard. So being in there, talking to people, building these relationships in the comments is half the battle. You have to spend time doing that if you actually want to use LinkedIn to grow your business as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, founder. And so I have to be in the mood. So what I do is, this is a blessing and a curse, which is part of why if anyone's ever like, it's too much mentally to be on LinkedIn, I'm like, cool, don't do it. Because you're completely right. I think in content all the time. It's like dorky level. Like I'll be driving and I'm like, oh, Anna, she's my wife, like, write this sentence down. That's going to be something. Like it's going to be something. That's awesome. It's like, so, but yeah, my system is Apple Notes. So it syncs with between my phone and my computer. And I generally will just write one line down, one phrase, one something that I find interesting. So if I pull up my notes now, and I do this every morning, I wake up, I kind of scroll through like, what have I written recently? And then I write out the actual thing that's pulling me the most. So for example, here's one. When you take a stance, you encourage people to think about their stance. Someone said this to me the other day. He's a little bit fake and a little bit genuine. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Let's see. I've sold X in digital courses in time frame. So that's like, oh, maybe I could finish that later. I wrote the phrase micro moments down. So like, this is what my notes look like. It's just stuff. And then I'll go through it and be like, oh, okay, like, do I want to expand that? What was I thinking here? And that's literally my process. I write the morning of, I never write ahead of time. I don't batch write. And it's all
Okay.
just very in the moment.
That's so interesting. Is this one giant note or do you keep separate notes for each
Separate
nugget?
notes.
Okay.
Separate notes so I can see specifically the date that it was last updated. When did I think of this? And then I should theoretically go through and organize these into like, these have been posted and have not. But I've only been doing this for 2.5 years, so I can kind of still remember what's been posted and what's not. So I'll go back sometimes to 2022 and be like, okay, how can I talk about this from a 2024 mindset? And I'll rehash the idea.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, you're reminding me of this. I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but Seth Godin was on it. And the interviewer asked him, what tool do you use to do your writing? And he refused to answer the question on the basis of it doesn't matter. Like if you're worried about what tool to use, you're missing the point. The point is just to do it. I think Seth Godin has a similar thing where like, if you invite him on your podcast, he will say yes if you've done at least 100 episodes.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just like do it. And you're kind of reminding me of that. It's like if you had explained some like sophisticated system with like Obsidian or Notion where everything is like linked together and it's like you've built this mind map. I think it's like so easy to get lost in that where your focus is just do it. Right. Here's a relatively simple system, helps you get your ideas out. And then that just keeps the friction low so you can just keep on going.
Totally. My whole thing is I actually enjoy the writing. I thoroughly enjoy looking at an idea and being like, what motivated me to feel this was important to write down? And then in that moment, I'll be like, and then how can I tie this to something in my world? Everyone has pillars. I have like soft pillars because sometimes I'll just kind of go into, I don't know, something that doesn't feel like it should be a pillar, but I can make it relate. So everything has to always have a big idea and a takeaway. And there has to be a reason why the audience is going to care at all about this. It can't just be about me. It has to, even if it has the word I more than you, it has to have at least a subtle lesson or something that's going to, help people think through something. So I say this as well all the time, like it's not a personal diary. And I think some people use social media a little bit like that. It's also not a place to go and just complain. You have to, you are not as much as we are all growing our own personal brands, we're actually not the star of it at all. It's the people that you're reading, that you're lifting up, that you're empowering. So what can you say from, whatever you're writing down that's happened in your life to then turn it to a lesson for the reader?
I love that. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a solopreneur, a creator? Like how would you identify the type of work that you do?
I guess it's both and like it's an interesting new thing that I think a lot of people that either have a job, so they're still working at a marketing agency, for example, for this audience, or marketing in general, sorry, not just agencies, or people who have gone out on their own are also becoming creators. So I think there's the idea of like the creator, which is I don't have a job. I make money from being a creator and I also do other things. And then there's the internal creator. And if that's not a thing yet, we should totally make it a thing from this episode. So I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think that companies are they already, the phrase employee advocacy. I think that that's like an uncool way to say what we actually mean, which is we need an army of internal creators that are going to go out there and create content on behalf of the company and on behalf of themselves to create this like omnipresent brand feeling. Some companies are really good at this. I just don't know if the phrase internal creator is a thing, but it makes sense in my head. Yes, I am a creator. I do sometimes do sponsored posts and things where I get paid to create, but I am also a solopreneur because I have a service that I sell and I have courses that I sell. So I suppose I'm both. I'm a solopreneur creator. And if I ever build my business beyond just me, then I guess that'll become entrepreneur/creator.
Yeah, that's really cool. Two follow-up things on that. One is the internal creator idea. I love that. There's definitely like this sort of tension right now. Like, like B2B influencers are becoming a thing. They're mostly...
Yeah, but it's not cool though.
No, I
Like
agree.
the
It's not
the
cool.
phrase is not cool.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because these companies are like, well, our own content team can't reach the people we want to reach, but these
Right.
individuals have the right audience. We'll pay them to say what they're saying, and it's like, well, why don't you just bring that in house the way you're saying? And I think there's this, not everybody is Tom from Grizzle, saying like,
Right.
actually, it's cool if you build a personal brand. Like we support that, even though like we, the company, may only reap a small portion of the total benefit, and you, the person, get the rest of it. It's kind of
Right.
I'm not exactly sure this is going to shake out, but I sense that companies associate this with risk. Maybe
Yeah.
they're not like gung ho about it, but it feels like, yeah, it's a huge opportunity there.
Totally. I think that I think that I understand being concerned about the risk because it is true. Like, if you have success, then you might leave. But I think that it's when you break it down in general, like most people are going to leave your company after X years, right?
Probably 2 years.
Like
It's not
2 years,
a
right?
decade. Yeah.
Like the whole like get a job and stay there for your whole life generation is seems like it's not this generation at all, right? Like the job stability is just not it's not there, and there's so many more options too. So I think no matter what, hiring anyone is a risk. So you might as well, in their tenure there, give them something to get something. Like that's the whole point of a job. Like you're giving people money to get something in return. Like also give them this empowerment to go and do this really great thing, and you're going to get so many things back. People still say that they found Grizzle through my profile, right? Like because it's on my work experience, they can find me talking about it in many ways, or they ask me about it and I'll say the name, right? So like it's going to continue to be a thing that's good for Grizzle, ideally for years to come,
Right.
even after people leave. I actually just really don't think it's that big of a risk. I think
Yeah.
hiring anyone is a risk.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. The other thing I wanted to follow up with you about is the second point is one of the reasons I was so excited to chat with you is that you're charting a non-traditional path in content marketing, right? Like
Mm,
for many years, it was you can work in-house at a SaaS company, you could work for an agency, or you could be a freelancer. And a freelancer meant you write. That's
uh-huh,
basically all you do.
uh-huh.
This creator economy, which is like a phrase I don't like totally love because
Yeah.
it kind of feels like V2 of the gig economy, which actually ended up being really crappy. I feel like
Yeah.
we need some new terminology there too, but it's like there is something very real here, which is that you can build courses and cohorts, and you're kind of
Yeah.
creating your own offerings based on what you are learning from your prospects and your customers. And it's not just selling your time for money, which is what a lot of content folks do because it's the most obvious path. And I'm just sort of curious, like how much have you kind of thought about that or reflected on it, or does it just feel natural and obvious to you?
I think about not wanting to sell all of my time for money all of the time because I definitely want to build a life where I have days where I don't have to talk to anyone, right? And I can still make money. But I also let me back up. There seems to be like two sides of this coin. You are either someone who thinks that selling courses is silly and you should just service people, and that one on one high ticket makes way more sense. And then there's people who talk about, you only need to do courses. If you sell your time, you are not free. There's like this whole like, if you want to be free, then you don't ever have a meeting on your calendar. I think like I'm doing both. And I think that there's a strong case for both because I personally get really lonely. There's a very, like, it's very, very lonely when you go out on your own. People don't talk about that enough
Oh my
publicly.
God, I
You're
totally
sitting
agree.
alone. We're all sitting alone kind of anyway at home, but you don't have a team on Slack to talk to. You don't have people to collaborate with. You're just on your own. It's extremely lonely. I can't imagine a business where all I do is sit in a room by myself and write, and then people give me money but never speak to me. Like that is so
Yeah,
sad.
yeah,
But I love the idea of people giving me money without having to speak to me also. So that's why I have the courses. Like, that's great. Passive income feels so like as good, if not better than I thought it would. So that's really cool. But I'm so glad that I figured out this content sparring offer 3 months ago, because I'm getting so much energy. I'm getting on the phone with people and being like, what's your problem? Let's talk through it. Let's work through it. I feel like my clients are kind of like an extension of my team, because even though we're not on the same team, we're all working towards a goal together, and it feels really, really good. So I'm all for the collaborative mix of it, and it's very intentional from my end.
I love it. What's like a pie chart of your week look like? Like, where does your time go?
So I'm trying to keep Mondays call free and Fridays as like a spillover in case the rest of the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday gets a bit, people have to cancel or whatever, or reschedule. So Mondays, no calls, work on the business, admin stuff for the business, which is not my favorite, but I'm realizing that I'm approaching that point of like delegation is going to need to be a thing soon. So right now I'm doing all of that on my own. So Mondays, I write, I do a bit of like creative thinking, I do admin stuff. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I've got like 4 to 5 calls a day with content sparring clients. And those are super fun. It's an hour call, and it's basically a one-to-one live editing session. They come with content, we talk through it, and they leave with like content that they feel really good about. And they go do whatever they want with it.
That does sound
Fridays,
like fun. That's cool.
It's so fun. It's so fun. And then Fridays are spillover in case people need to reschedule or cancel. Otherwise, it's a Monday. It's like an end of week. Okay, what do I have to wrap up? Like, what did I say I'd get done for people this week if I haven't done it yet? What admin stuff is like kind of bothering me? How's my inbox looking? And then what do I have to think about for next week? Check things off the to-do list. That's that. So that's
really
how it
cool.
is right now.
Yeah. Really cool. I don't know. Honestly, kudos to you. Like, like you mentioned earlier that you started on Upwork, which is like, a lot of folks start there, and it really, in so many ways, it's a great entry point, but you took that, like, built momentum, worked at the agency, learn the trade, go out on your own, build your own business, doing the things that you want to do and are great at. And to me, it's like a dream story for content marketers. Like, one of the things I hope to get out of this podcast is that the folks listening have some inspiration for their own careers. Like, we don't go deep on career in every episode, but like, I want people to, at least just be open to like, there's other ways than like just stay in house and try to become a marketing director. And there's other ways than just like take on so much freelance work, until, whatever, like your fingers can't type anymore. Like, there's all these cool middle grounds, and you're just an amazing example of that. Yeah.
I have really realized that how people interpret the value of work throughout my career, right? So I'm realizing that even though what I'm doing in these content sparring calls is really no different than if someone sent me a piece of content and I edited it, it's the fact that I'm doing it out loud in real time and explaining the choices I'm making in real time that is valuable, not the edits themselves. The edits are cool. Like, thanks for changing that sentence. It sounds better, but it's the transfer of knowledge and the learning that happens in real time that is valued. So for anyone who is like stuck behind a computer writing or editing words and is wondering, how do I make more from this? It is the value of, what have you done here and how can I then do it myself, or how can I do it better? Like, that is what people are paying for. That is the level up. So I hope that helps someone.
Yeah, no, I think it's so cool. Where's the best place to point people? Like, definitely we'll link to your LinkedIn, because as I mentioned, you post a lot. So folks should definitely go check that out. Cut the Fluff and Content Sparring. Anywhere else? I have
contentsparring.com. So that's new, that's up. ericaschneider.me is like half live at the moment. You can go to it. It's live. It's just not quite ready. So, hopefully that'll be ready soon, but LinkedIn, and actually all my stuff is on The Juice now, if listeners are fans of The Juice. So all my courses, every podcast I've ever been on, my newsletter goes through there as well. So if you want like a robust, this is everything Erica's kind of done, and I want to just binge read it or watch it, you can go to my profile on The Juice. It's called Cut the Fluff. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll link to all that stuff. So that will be in the show notes for people. Erica, so great to meet you. Awesome to hear your story. We really appreciate you taking the time, and would love to do a round 2 sometime too.
Awesome. Be back anytime. Thanks for having me.
Take care.